Okay, everyone. So thank you for being here. We are here to help you really get a hold of your new year, your new school year. So we're going to talk about how you can unlock some of your program potential through support. And this is really a challenging time, especially if you are brand new to this position. Just a little bit about me. I know so many of you, I chat with you, I've jumped on calls with many of you. Thank you for doing that. Those of you that leave comments on my YouTube channel, I have to tell you the story. It's kind of funny. Carpia, I was just talking with you about this last week, but it was really by accident that I started working towards supporting those of you that are now in the role I was in about 15, 20 years ago. And I, in 2018, decided to put up a YouTube video for unsolicited advice because that's what we teachers do, right? We offer unsolicited advice. And crazy thing happened. People started listening and watching, and it has been just a joy to get to know you, to support you, to create content for you, to talk with you, and just help you. I was where many of you are, where I had a position. I was a new reading specialist. It was very early in my career, and I was always asking the question, how do you teach a kid to read? Even grad school did not tell me that answer, unfortunately. This was back during the time of whole language and balanced literacy, and we didn't get a lot of that. But I was really fortunate to be a part of this grant-funded cohort in the Central Valley of California put on by the Diagnostic Center. It was called the Effective Reading Intervention Academy, and it was around the year 2006. And I was trained by the best. Anita Archer, if you know me, you know I'm fangirl on her big time. Anita Archer, Jan Hasbrook, Kevin Feldman, all of these amazing leaders and experts that would come in. And that's where I really learned about the science of reading, about reading intervention, and it was focused on middle school. And I took all of that, developed an amazing middle school program, then went down into the elementary and worked to create those as well. Had 3 state recognized programs that were just really top notch. And I realized, I was doing the science of reading before we slapped the label, the science of reading, on it. And you guys are in this journey now where I was a long time ago. So I want you to know that I have been in your shoes, and so much of what I create for you is written for me back then. It's all the questions I had and the answers that I was looking for, because we can all go to a great webinar. We can learn from the best of the best, but sometimes there's a disconnect between what the experts are telling us and what we can practically do in reality in the classroom. And so I try to see myself as a translator for that. So it all starts with the science of reading. And I know that you are just like me. You kind of nerd out on this stuff, right? We dig into it. We love to learn. And if you are new, then you're just beginning on this journey. So I want to give you a couple of foundational points that everything that we do is rooted in. The first is the simple view of reading. We have to begin with the understanding that reading comprehension is a product. It is not an isolated skill. I love what Hugh Katz says. He says that we cannot teach reading comprehension in one way because it is not one thing. It is a culmination and an amalgamation of so many skills that can actually impact. So if you are a middle school or upper elementary teacher, interventionist, you're working with those kids, you get a lot of kids that 4th grade on present as reading comprehension deficits. And well-intentioned teachers, without kind of the understanding of how all of this develops, may start doing reading strategies with them, just reading more. I'm going to give you more at your level, and that's going to fix the problem. And it doesn't. And that is because we have to consider that there are 2 main aspects to reading comprehension, to this formula. The students have to have the ability to recognize the print on the page. Now, this is the part that has really become, I think, the movement of the science of reading. Some people will say, well, it's phonics only, and it really isn't. But it kind of started because of this need to really build up this aspect and this side of the formula. So our students need to have that phonological and phonemic awareness. They have to have the phonics knowledge of the code to be able to decode and then encode. They have to weave all of this together so that they can read with automaticity and fluency. Anita Archer always says, you can teach all the reading strategies you want. If they can't read the print on the page, they won't comprehend. So this is a very large part of what we do in intervention. And it changes as far as grade levels and deficits. The language comprehension side, though, is equally as important. This is now understanding what the words mean. We can read the word, great. Do we have knowledge? Do we have the background knowledge, the prior experience, the language concepts to know what those words and what that syntax all means? Can we communicate? And so in intervention, we get a mixture of deficits. And I'm going to attempt, I don't know if it's going to let me work here or not, because I'm in Canva, which I'm not really sure of. Let's imagine here that the word recognition aspect of this formula was 0. The student was not able to decode the print. However, they had 100% language comprehension. Well, what is 0 times 100? It is still 0. You cannot comprehend if you can't read the print and understand what it means. That is really that profile of our dyslexic student, right? And I'm using 0 just for math's sake because I'm not a math teacher. I'm a reading teacher for a reason. But you get my point, right? The deficit is on the word recognition side of things. Those are our students who are at risk for dyslexia. The other side of this, what if we had a student that had 100% word recognition? They read beautifully. They didn't understand either the language concepts, the vocabulary. They didn't have the background knowledge. They too would have 0 reading comprehension. That is really the profile of our English learners. Those are very different teachable needs, both presenting as reading comprehension deficits. And this is where the knowledgeable teacher, in conjunction with a strong interventionist or specialist, can come in and develop a plan of action to help both of those students because they're very different teaching points. You're all familiar, I hope, with Scarborough's reading rope, which takes this a little bit further. This is really just another interpretation of the formula, I think. We are looking here at hoping our students are skilled readers. The goal is that all of these skills are functioning beautifully. They're woven together in order to have a student who can read and comprehend what they're reading. But again, if this little rope is a knotted mess, we can backward map to see which thread or skill is lacking. And it may be on the word recognition side of things. It may be on that language comprehension side. But the point is still, we have to use our assessment, our screeners, and our diagnostic tools in order to figure out where the instruction needs to happen. This is why we can't just throw a canned program at kids. We can't just stick them on the computer and hope that AI and computer adaptive technology is going to take care of it. They need us to interpret all of this. And it is absolutely a challenge. So we have to be prevention focused. If you are in the elementary intervention space, then we're definitely focused on prevention. If you're one of those middle school, upper elementary teachers, a lot of the things that could have been prevented are starting to take root and it gets a little harder. It absolutely can still be done. But this is why I advocate, if you are developing programs in your schools, okay, is that you work on developing a strong K-2 program first and you grandfather in as they get older. If you try to take on a K-8 program, let's say that you're a district specialist or a program administrator, and you try to take on K-8, that's going to be really, really challenging. But let's put our efforts where we can start to see the impact right away, and that's K-2. Now, if you have a program that's already in place and you're starting to tweak it, then you can look to where you need to be. But for those of you just starting, K-2 should be, in my opinion, your focus. Now, you're all familiar with the MTSS model, right? We know that we are looking at this tiered level of support where if our systems are healthy, 80% of our students should be meeting their needs at tier 1. That means core instruction should be so good that that student never needs to leave that classroom. The teacher is able to provide everything that those kids need. Phenomenal. That was not the case in my schools, all of my schools. I don't know many. With a healthy system, only about 15% of your students are going to need tier 2 services. It's a strategic support. It means that we know where the deficit is. We're going to go in, we're going to provide targeted, efficient instruction with that skill gap in small groups so that we can make our instruction efficient, and we're going to meet the needs of about 15% of our kids. That leaves the 5% that are going to need intensive support and or special education, depending on the needs. How different schools run that a little bit differently. Now, the further up we go in the pyramid, the more intense our instruction, the more time they should be spending in intervention, the more progress monitoring we should be collecting, and the size of the group gets smaller. Now, this can feel overwhelming. If you're coming into a school, my school was, when we started at, let's see, my K-5 school, it was a K-6 school. And I assessed the whole school. I'll tell you about my program a little bit later. But we found that our K-2 kids, we had about 80% not meeting the need of phonemic awareness. Their phoneme segmentation fluency was way low. Their nonsense word fluency was pretty low. Their first sound fluency was pretty low. We had to get really creative because when you have about 80% of your kids not meeting the needs, that is not an intervention issue. We need to support our teachers in order to develop those skills in the tier 1. We did that. We used the data. We found the resources. I trained everybody. We pushed all of that instruction into the K-2 and in intervention for kids that needed the double dose. And by the end of the year, we had about 80% meeting. So we went from about 20% meeting to about 80%. Pretty good. And that was because we were working with tier 1 and tier 2 and 3 at the same time. Now, I know, and you know, that tier 1 is most important. It is prevention, right? A strong tier 1 is absolutely the most important. But I think some schools get this wrong as far as how to invest their precious time and money in professional development. I believe those of you that are here right now, the majority of you are interventionists. You are that hungry soul. You are that champion that wants to make change at your site. You are here, not your whole staff, you. That means that we can use tier 2 and tier 3 in order to be the catalyst for tier 1. It doesn't always have to come first, okay? It depends on your staff. If you have a really resistant staff and you go in and you say, okay, guys, guess what? We're going to redo everything in tier 1. You are going to get a, whoa, Nellie, that's not what I want to hear right now, right? And it's going to be an uphill battle. If, however, you're the passionate one, you have a couple of really passionate educators with you, and you start really focusing in on tier 2 and tier 3, and you get the instruction dialed in, you get the assessment dialed in, and pretty soon your teachers are like, hey, what are you doing over there? That's how we can get them along. So it doesn't always have to be the first priority in that regard. It really depends on your staff. Now, here's what we know about reading trajectories. The younger students are, the easier it is to catch them up. They're pliable, they're malleable, they are like little sponges. When students come to us about the beginning of first grade, as you can see here, their skill gaps are relatively narrow. Now, we know that there are still gaps in first grade, of course, but from an oral reading fluency standpoint, it's very little. But what happens, and if you've ever taught first grade, you've seen this firsthand, something magical happens after Christmas. I don't know what it is, but those little kids come back ready to take off. It's like they got some sleep, their brains are starting to develop, and after Christmas break, you can see the separation where the kids that are getting their skills in check, they start to take off. And this is where that gap starts to develop. And if we can start kinder and first grade to keep this gap from happening, we can do great things. So what happens? Well, your kids that are learning to read, they're being successful, they are getting motivated to read, they're feeling really confident, they're reading more. And the more you read and the better you are, the more words you get under your belt, the more, I guess, encouragement that you get from your parents, from your school, your teachers, all of those things. You get awards, all those things. And what happens to our little darlings that struggle? They don't get as many. It's harder. It takes them longer to read. And it's human nature to avoid something that is painful. It is human nature. There is no way I'm going to go run around the block. Not even a chance in heck that I would do that. It's going to be painful. But our students who are struggling, sometimes the only reading practice they get in instruction is with you and the classroom teacher. So we have to maximize that time. This is why I say focus on your K2 programs, dial them in, and then grandfather it up. It's a lot easier to close this little gap here than it is to close this little gap here. It can be done, but it's a lot easier. Now, a couple of other things I want you to know. I have literally worked with K-12. In my 30 years as an educator, I have worked with all of those, and I've seen this happen. Not everybody has that experience where they can see it from a vertical standpoint. But what happens is these kids that were poor readers in first grade continue to be your poor readers. They might go up, but going up is not enough. We need to catch them up. The gap widens. The texts become more and more complex. The tasks that they have to do become more and more challenging. So we want to give them the tools as early as we can. Now, that doesn't mean that once they're done in intervention in primary, that they don't ever need it again. Maybe, maybe not. It depends. But it's a lot easier down here. So there are barriers to this, right? We have to create change early, and we have to help our staff to develop the system at your school that can do all of that. And if we don't, there's a lot of problems in the future for these kids. You guys saw the NAEP scores came out right last year. So I think that this isn't my updated one. I think the most recent NAEP was 2024 the nation's report card. Less than a third of our fourth graders and eighth graders are proficient in reading. I don't know how people are not screaming from the rooftops that this is unacceptable. It's beyond me that a school will say, well, 50% are reading. Okay, so we're going to just not worry about the other 50%. We've really got to dial this in. We know that 21% of adults have low literacy skills. So a quarter of our adult population are still struggling readers. We know that of those adults that are incarcerated in jails and prisons, 75% are illiterate. 75%. And out of the adults with those lowest literacy rates, 43% live in poverty. 70% of our adult welfare recipients also have low literacy rates. So it is absolutely probable that if we improve literacy rates, we can change these numbers as a society, right? Which only benefits everybody. We want to reduce the incarcerated adults. Great. That means crime is lower. I would love that, right? We want to do all those things. So the work we have to do here is critical. And in many cases, you may be on that line of last defense. So we have to start with an understanding of what this is. Intervention is instruction based on assessed need, and it is designed to accelerate achievement. If we're just holding them where they are and we're not accelerating, we can't catch them up. So we have to do things better and more efficiently than the classroom teacher. Or if the classroom teacher is doing the intervention, then they need to do this. We know that intervention needs to focus on the 5 critical literacy skills that are still highlighted in the National Reading Panel report and that make up what is the science of reading, right? That body of evidence that tells us what to do. We have to focus on phonemic awareness and phonics and fluency, especially in the early grades. We have to focus on vocabulary, comprehension, oral language. And some of those don't become as important as kids get older, and some take on more necessity as they get older. So there is kind of a spectrum on where those fall. We have to deliver we have to deliver instruction with evidence-based resources that follow structured literacy. If the schools are not providing the teachers and staff with the tools that they need, and the teacher is creating it or going on Teachers Pay Teachers, that is not structured literacy, and that is not an evidence-based product. So we have to find ways to get the tools we need to do the job that needs to be done. We also, in intervention, need to make sure that this is in addition to solid and differentiated Tier 1 core instruction. If, in my opinion, if a student is being pulled out of core instruction to receive intervention, we will never catch them up. They are constantly on the hamster wheel. You pull them out, then they miss something. Then they're coming back and they're more confused because they don't know what the rest of the group was doing. So this has to be prioritized. Now, intervention is not a replacement for core instruction. Core instruction should be differentiated. We have to meet the needs of those kids. I know, and there's a push for small group instruction in the core. If you can make that work, great. But we need to really make sure that core instruction is strong. It is also not a balanced literacy approach that focuses on guided reading levels. Anybody want to get rid of levels altogether? Like when parents come in, what level are they on? We have to change the perspective here. It's not about levels, it's about skills. Intervention is not a place that we go to send kids to fix them. We are a piece and a part and a cog in the wheel of the team. And it is not, and some schools really get this wrong, it is not reteaching grade level standards. Intervention is not a grade level standard reteach. That's remediation. And your school may need that, but that's not what intervention is. Okay. Any questions so far? We're good? Okay. Now, the first practical tip I want to give you, you have to know what your job is. And if you're like most in this job, nobody tells you. Anybody go, I don't know, they never told me. Okay, true story. Let me tell you a true story. When I came into this in my district that I was in the longest, I wrote my own list of roles and responsibilities because there wasn't one. And then I asked for it to be board approved. So I'll give this to you when we close out. If you haven't already picked up the template, I have a list of roles and responsibilities for you that you are welcome to make a copy of and tweak it for your needs. But these are, in my opinion, some of the main ones. And in my template, you're going to see the roles for the interventionist, the classroom teacher, the administrator, the para. So you get everybody. Because we need to define what we do. Otherwise, I joke about this all the time. Otherwise, they think you're eating bonbons, right? That, oh, the interventionist, we don't really know what she does. She's in the room. We don't really know. She seems to be happy. She must be eating bonbons. Here are some of the things that I think are critical. The interventionist job primarily is to manage the universal screening of the entire school 3 times a year. We have to get the right data. So that person should be the point person for identifying who is at risk. And this is actually should be K8, not K5. I haven't adjusted this, but this is everybody. Bring that down real quick. Let's see. They are also, most of the time, responsible for providing small group and skill-based instruction for those students who qualify for intervention. And you may be like me, where I was the specialist and I was fortunate to have a team of paras under me so that there were 4 or 5 adults to deliver instruction, all under my direction. You are to ensure the quality of the resources that are being used. So you got to do your research. You've got to know what tools are necessary to target those essential and early literacy skills. And you have to be well-versed in matching the resource to the need. We cannot just throw resources out there and hope that, well, it says it's a science of reading one. It's not that simple. A lot of publishers are putting that on, and some are good, some are great, some aren't so great. The interventionist should also facilitate the progress monitoring data. Now, progress monitoring, in my opinion, is only necessary for the kids receiving intervention or the kids that you've released from intervention that you want to keep an eye on to see if they are still doing well. So that is part of that. Now, the final thing is the analysis of the data falls on the interventionist as well. Whether it is you working in grade level teams, you working with departments, you talking to your administrators, but it really gets facilitated through you so that you can make adjustments to your program and your instruction. Okay, so practical tip number 1, strongly urge you to create a list of roles and responsibilities. It will make you feel better. It will make your administrator feel better. It will show everybody what it is that you actually do because they don't know, and that's something I get way into in both of my courses. We've got to promote what we do. But when you know what to do, that's a lot easier of a job to handle than, I don't know. Now, the guiding question as we are thinking about these programs is, how do you create a responsive intervention program that is aligned to the science of reading and is dedicated to improving the literacy outcomes for all students? And we have to have some general things in place. We have to have assessment. Everything that we do in intervention has to begin with assessment. We need a strong universal screener. We need good diagnostic tools, and we need strong and good progress monitoring tools that will help us to target our instruction. We also need to have a system in place to track that data. The data is only good if we use it. If it's just sitting in a report somewhere and nobody uses it, it's useless and it's a waste of instructional time. So we need to track the data. We need to set goals with the data. We need to collect over time what this data is doing. It's not only going to tell you how your intervention programs are, but it's going to help you to evaluate the tier 1 instruction as well. We need really good evidence-based resources. And this is an investment, right? This is not cheap. If you've ever been on adoption committees, boy, you know this gets pricey. That resource, those curriculum resources, should target those 5 pillars of literacy and get into the skills. It's not just about reading more, although we need decodable text so that our kids can practice the reading. We absolutely need those. The other piece of this intervention journey is your pedagogy. This is your knowledge of best practices related to literacy and intervention. So you have to know what those evidence-based practices are. You need to be well-versed in explicit, direct instruction. And you need to optimize this for small groups of, and this is the key word, reluctant learners. If they're a struggling reader, you're going to have some reluctant kids. Not all of them. Some are so easy. They're just so happy to be there. But you're going to get some that are challenging with their behavior because they would rather be seen as the bad kid than the dumb kid, right? That's human nature as well. And then finally, you've got to consider training and personnel. We have to have the tools and the training in order to do this hard work. And that also includes knowledge of all of the moving parts. If you are an interventionist, you are somewhat quasi-admin. You're not really a classroom teacher. You're not really admin because you don't have the authority to make everybody do what needs to be done. So you're kind of in this floating space of, I know what needs to be done, but I don't really have the authority to do it. So it takes some really strong relationship building. Okay, where's my cursor? There it is. Okay. So an effective intervention, 4 basic steps. You assess all students to identify the skill-based instructional need. That's where it starts. We then take that data, we match the skill deficit to an evidence-based curriculum. We deliver direct, explicit instruction, usually in small groups or smaller, grouping kids by like need and similar skill deficits. And then we frequently, about every 2 to 3 weeks, collect progress monitoring data to tell us how we're doing. And we adjust the instruction as needed. That leads me to the second big practical tip for you. You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. Otherwise, you don't know where we're going. What happens is if we don't have a plan, these wonderful teachers and interventionists are in the car going, what am I going to do today? We all have those days on occasion, right? Like, I need to change something up, but we really need to move away from that. We have to have a plan. So we start by identifying the problem. That's our screener. We give the diagnostic to determine why is there a problem? Where is that instruction needed? We then provide a plan so that we can develop the instruction to target the need. And then we progress monitor to see if the plan is working. And this cycle, we go round and round, right? In between benchmark windows. And that is really the foundational part of where we begin with intervention. But we can improve our results. If you've ever prepared for a marathon, which I have not, as you know, because I'm not running around the block, much less a marathon. But those of you that are wonderfully fit and could do all those things, God bless you. But how do you prepare for a marathon? It's a long journey, isn't it? There's a lot of preparation that goes in here. So I want to remind you that you can't do everything at once. You have to take this project on in chunks. It's like eating an elephant one bite at a time. If you're preparing for a marathon, first you got to get your headspace right. Am I going to do it? Am I not? Then you might need the right tools. You got to go out and get the right shoes. Then you might reach out and you might talk to a coach. Like, what should I do? You need a guide. You need somebody who knows the way, goes the way, and can show you the way. Those are the words of John Maxwell, who I adore. The third and final practical tip for you is you have to know what's important. So that means you are prioritizing. And everybody's going to be different in your journey here. Scheduling, in my experience, is usually everybody's number one nightmare. If we can't schedule intervention, if we cannot prioritize intervention in the schedule, what ends up happening is that you get kids when the teachers have time, right? When there's not something better to do. That's a problem. You can't make change and growth if you don't have them. So we have to prioritize intervention with those skills. Okay, so this is, like I said, this is in Canva. I'm not sure. It's not letting me get the other one. Let me see. There we go. You need resources. I strongly recommend that you guys start a wish list and you keep it somewhere in your lesson plan book. And every time you're like, oh my gosh, I need something to target A, B, or C, you write it down. And that you do your homework when you have time throughout your year. The reason is, I don't know if anybody else has a principal like this, but at the end of the year when budgets are being called out and they have deadlines, my principal, God love him, he would always come to me, go, Emily, I need to spend $6,000 by 3:00 this afternoon because otherwise we use it or lose it. So if you have that wish list ready, you can go, done, got it, here it is. And that's how you start developing your resource library. The final thing is coaching. You got to have a guide. You have to know that, and we all have areas of weakness, right? No matter what it is, whether it's budgeting, whether it's nutrition, fitness, whatever it may be. It's always easier when you can save time because somebody else has done it before. And I'm going to share this next thing with you also when we end. There is something called implementation science. And Laura Stewart wrote this great ebook that's free from 95% Group that talks about how to implement change. And this is true for anything. In order to implement change, we have to have effective practice. Okay, so this for intervention means evidence-aligned instruction. We have to have the principles of instruction and effective resources. We have to have effective implementation. This is all about the professional learning, the ongoing coaching, so that we have somebody that can help us. And we have to have the enabling context, which is the environment, the setting, the leadership, right? The teamwork that goes involved. And when you have all of these, the effective practice, implementation, and context, whatever percentage of each of these that you have can be multiplied together to determine how socially significant your outcomes will be. And when we went through the beta, I know Kim was with me on the beta with this one. When we went through this beta, we were all like, okay, well, how did we get 24% accurate? Well, we're reading teachers, but if you plug it into a calculator, 80% times 50% times 60% is only 24% effective. And I think what that tells me is it doesn't take a lot off of the top of each of these to reduce our effectiveness. If you do not have really good pedagogy, it's going to impact your effectiveness. If you do not have professional learning, it's going to affect the effectiveness. If you don't have strong leadership and a good team, it's going to impact your effectiveness. So I will give you this. It's a really good, quick read, but I think it's a way for you to come together as a team, as a staff, and talk about this. So the decision I suggest that you consider with your team, what support and training will be provided to the intervention teacher or the team in order to make sure that there is success for your most academically at-risk students, because that's who we target. And that there's a big decision. So here's what I have to offer you. I have two main, very comprehensive courses that are designed for K-5 and 6-8. The first one, we did this one last year, the Reading Intervention Framework. It's a focus on MTSS on Tier 2, Tier 3 intervention. And this course is asynchronous. Oh, Kim, the author is Laura Stewart. This asynchronous course is, I think they're all 6 modules. It's about 7 or 8 hours of content. There are a number of PDFs, handouts, templates, guides. There are workbooks to help you go on an asynchronous learning opportunity. This is really perfect for those of you that are in K-5 intervention, or you're brand new to intervention and you happen to be maybe 3-5, 3-8, that kind of space. I think I would still start here because there's a lot of early literacy things that you would still want to do. Now, I ran this course live for teams with the Institute for Educational Development last February and March, and it was great. If you go through, it now has moved on to BER, which is the Bureau of Educational Research. It's going to come out live then with me leading it in a 2-day seminar, 2 full days. You can have it asynchronously, and so you can work through it on your own. You're welcome to join us at BER, but they're going to charge you double. Okay, there's a really big upcharge with them. This is not my first rodeo with courses. I've been doing this for about 5 years. I've supported California teachers with the RECA. So my courses are very structured, logical, linear. It's go at the top, start at the beginning, work your way through it. I'm going to guide you. I'm a teacher just like you, and so I'm going to teach you the content. If you would like to grab this course before Wednesday, the coupon code webinar10 will give you 10% off on both of my courses. Okay, so write that down, webinar 10. I don't like for teachers to have to pay for their own professional development, but I know the reality. What I would suggest, and I do have an admin email template that you could use, I would suggest you get it and ask for reimbursement, or you get their permission. If you need to go through a PO or anything like that, just contact me. Okay, we can talk about that. I don't like for you to have to do this on your own, but I know that most of you probably will. Now, my web host is Kajabi, and so all of my courses are also available on a mobile app. If you go to Kajabi, you look for that little blue icon, that will give you access. So if you're watching, on your tablet and your desktop, it will all sync together. And I'll take you behind the scenes to show you. This was just the IED, the Institute for Educational Development. This is to show you what they did in February and March. You can see what they charged here. The new one for December hasn't been released yet, so I don't have the updated one yet, but that one is coming also. For those of you also, my K-5 program also has an optional supplemental Trello board where all of the digital resources are housed. I give this to all of my private coaching clients. They get everything I have to offer as part of a private coaching situation. But this is something I talk about it at the end of the course. It's a way to keep your program formalized and to keep it digital and to be able to share it with all of your staff. It's like a Google Drive on steroids is what Trello is. Check out Trello. Trello is a free tool. If you want to build your own, I think it's a great, great tool. Now, my Reading Reset course for middle school is available today. This has been a long haul, let me tell you, because lots of things have happened over the summer. I don't feel like I've had a summer. I've been writing 2 courses, the Reading Reset course, and then I wrote a Foundations of Reading test course for new teachers. So if your states use the Foundations of Reading test, the FORT, in order to credential their teachers, I have a new course. It's amazing. I would be forever grateful if you would share my information with your new teachers, and you'll see emails and things coming out about that. But the Reading Reset course, same price. You would also get 10% off of this one. The coupon code it may only apply to one if you go to checkout. If you want both of them, contact me. We'll talk about a bulk discount for you, okay? If you think, oh my gosh, I want to grab both of these, let me know. This one, though, is focused on the middle school. The module frameworks are very, very similar because a lot of what we have to do is similar. But there are a great deal of differences in regards to what we teach, how we teach it, the assessment, and specifically the scheduling and the models of intervention. It looks very different at a middle school. But that is also now available today. In fact, I just re-recorded a module before I hopped on here. That's why my hair isn't all that pretty today. Okay, there's one other thing I can offer to you, and I love this because I just think it's the best. You are welcome to hop on a private Zoom call with me and talk about coaching. I have coached dozens of interventionists over the last 3 years or so. And this is a private one-on-one situation where we start by doing an assessment audit. We look at what assessment you're using, where you need to tweak. This is where it always begins. We move into, okay, once we know what the kids are struggling with, we've got the right data, we can look at curriculum guidance and support. And it's a lot of mentorship because if you're new to your position or you're ready to elevate, but you're not really sure what to do, I'm really like a thought partner for you. So I'm going to drop a link where you can book a Zoom call with me and we can chat about this. Typically, people will ask about cost. So let me explain. I can create whatever you need. It depends on yours. So I want you to know that there is some flexibility here. But typically, I meet with you every other week. I have unlimited email, phone support. I'm your thought partner behind the scenes. If you're like, Emily, I need something for X, Y, or Z, I'm on the back end because you're with kids and I'm helping you to figure it out, okay? I'm helping you develop your program. It's typically about $500 a month, okay? Because it's private and it's one-on-one. If we could group a small group, I would reduce that. So if you have a group from neighboring districts and you want to get into that, we can talk about that privately as well. But it starts with an initial call. I chat with you privately, get to know what your needs are. I draw up a contract, we negotiate the contract, and we set a schedule. And there's an email that I will give you, that template that will help you approach your administrator about this. We know through that implementation science, we know that programs that have coaching succeed. What does every elite athlete have? A private coach, right? They have private almost everything. They might even have a private psych that's working on the mental game. They have the private coach that's working on the physical game. So we know there's a great deal of evidence that will show you the impact that coaching can have. So I hope that you consider it. But the best way to get started, I think, is to take a course. If you start with a course, you get to know my style, you get to know what I'm all about, the systems that I've put in place and the guidance that I offer. And then coaching just takes it more in depth, right? Because you may go through a course, unlikely, but you may go through a course and go, nah, I don't think she knows what she's talking about. It may happen, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I hope not. If so, you need to let me know because there's a problem on my end. But I would suggest considering a course. And again, that discount is going to be in effect until Wednesday. If you get started with that, you like that, and you want to either talk about coaching, or another thing I do is I can bring the course content to your district or to your staff, and we can go through it live, whether it's in person or it's virtual. Okay, I can work those things as well. You're going to see exactly what I would teach and what I say is important, and we can tweak it for the needs of your particular staff. So there's lots of ways that I try to be flexible because I know every school is different, every staff is different, and I want to honor that and where you are in that journey. But I sat in on a session last year. I didn't get to make it to Big Sky this year. I was bummed. There was some things going on in our family that couldn't be rearranged. But last year, I listened to Dr. Tiffany Hogan, who is an implementation scientist. And this is what it comes down to. Thoughtful implementation is the key to success. If you are just going in there trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do today? You don't have a plan. You don't really know what your role is. You're throwing spaghetti against a wall, and it's not going to hit your students like it could. So I would encourage you to kind of think this through. This is a QR code. It should lead you back to my website. If you haven't seen my new website, shout out to Mandy Hopp, who redid my website so that it's more friendly. But all of my courses are there. And I've done this, you guys, for a long time. And I hope to be able to help you in however you need. So I'm going to stop sharing and just open it up for questions at this point while I drop some things in the chat for you. Thoughts, questions, comments?
Are the slides that you shared on this available? I had asked that in the chat.
I can email them to you. I don't think I have those right now available, but I don't mind sending that in the recording if that would help. Sure.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, I'm going to drop a number of things in here. Copy. And you can pick and choose if you want to look at any of these things. Another thing that I'm going to do this year are Q&A sessions. If you're on my email list, I have offered Q&As for about the last 2 years, and it's just been open to everybody. But as my course members are growing, I'm going to start limiting those Q&As to invite only for those that are going through my courses. And that's because you all have a similar foundation because you've already gone through the course, so we can elevate that conversation. I may open up to just general conversations for anybody, but I think that those that are with me, you're ready to go a little bit further, and I want to honor that as well. So I'm going to stop the recording.